Well, my name is Skip Smith. I'm the CEO of the Allentown Rescue Mission. I've been with the mission about 12 years, and the mission's been around 125 years next year. So we'll be celebrating our 125th anniversary. Um, and first, I want to say thank you for your support. We appreciate your financial support. We are 100% private donor funded. We see about 1,000 men a year, and we have a 30,000 square foot facility. We do 4 different things. Most people know of us as a homeless shelter, and we are that. We are a gospel rescue mission. So we are a rescue mission with the intent of missionally supporting people that are homeless and explaining to them why we're doing it, which is because we believe in the gospel and sharing the gospel with them. So that's why we are a gospel rescue mission. We're not a church, we're not a parachurch, we're a unique animal. And we exist, many gospel rescue missions exist across the country. We do 4 things. We are very different than other typical rescue missions. We are a safety net on the front end, which means if you come off the street, if you are homeless and you need a place to stay, we're open 24/7, 365, and we will give you shelter, food, clothing, medical support on several levels. Twice a week we have free clinics. We also have money for needs that we can't provide. And we will get you to 28 different social service agencies if that's what you need. The second, and you can spend 30 days in our shelter, and then we want a decision about what you're going to do, how you're going to go forward. Because if you left it open-ended, there'd be guys that would retire with us. And then we want them to take daily actions to end homelessness while they're in the shelter. Again, we see about 1,000 men a year in the shelter. We have capacity for 72 beds. We're adding 23 more. We have a nice donation from a gentleman that called me up and he said he had money to give me if we could spend it for capital. I took it, and we're building about a $260,000 expansion. He's a longtime donor. He just called me up. He said, "Skip, this is Al. I got $500,000 for you if you can spend it on capital." So I could spend about $260. I didn't have a good way to spend the rest of it, so we didn't take it. So the second thing we do, which is really the core, is what we call the transformation program. It used to be called Christian Living and Values. That is an 8-week course, residential, full-time school. They go to 3 classes a day. And it's 120 hours of education in total. Half of the education is exposure to religious principles, the gospel, who God is, who man is, their place in the world. These guys are incredibly entitled and oftentimes somewhat narcissistic, believe it or not. And the other 60 hours, or 50% of it, is in life skills, workforce development skills. You would think things that you would take for granted, that you probably learned at the kitchen table growing up, they don't understand. Going to work, being flexible, honesty, punctuality, respect for coworkers. So we have a lot of things we have to go through with them. Anger management's a big one. A lot of these guys take the anger management segment and say, "I had no idea I was that angry," when they do the workbook work and everything. Resume writing, computer skills. You can't even apply for a job anymore without being online. So it's 50-50 between straight religious education, Bible teaching, and life skills. If they graduate that, the carrot, on the end of the stick, the encouragement, if they graduate, the day they graduate, they have employment with our clean team workforce. So they graduate on Friday, Monday morning they start with a job. We have custodial bank accounts that they are forced to have their earnings saved, except for a $20 a week allowance. They don't really need to spend it on anything, honestly. All their needs are met. And then when they leave, they get a check to take their bank account out. So many guys get over $10,000 when they leave. That's first and last month's rent. That's whatever they needed for it. Their feet are on the ground. They've got a job. We are constantly trying to lose our best workers that work for us. We're like a break-even business model. We're trying to lose them for them to get a job in the private sector on their own. And then they'll stay with us for a while typically and then get an apartment, but they'll have the money to do it. So our tagline is rescue, rehabilitate, and restore. So we're trying to the fourth thing we do is if they lose their job 2 years later or get laid off or whatever, they can move back in with us and start working for us again without having to go through the whole homeless cycle again. So our tagline is rescue, rehabilitate, and restore. So we want to rescue them from the street, rescue them from their unsaved condition, rehabilitate them and restore them to independence, a rightful role in society, many times restore them to a relationship with their family. If they got to where they are through substance abuse, they've usually burned the bridges with their family. And if they can walk the straight and narrow and behave well and show that they're productive members of society, oftentimes their family is dying to have them back. They just want the guy they originally knew, not the drunk that left them. So we do four things: safety net at the front end, safety net at the back end, an emergency shelter, and then a transformation program where we preach the gospel message and work on their life skills. We need atonement. We need them to say they need help. One of the phrases I use where we have trouble is the people are not willing to humble themselves and admit their sin, admit they need to correct their behavior. So what we just went through, the pastor talking about the necessary step of reflection and confession, it is so important for the men that we see. It is so important. We try very hard to not have them do what I call a veneer conversion, where they try to figure out what's the right words I have to say here. That never lasts. It never lasts. They don't have a change of heart. They can make money, they can earn money with us, but the train comes off the rail down the road. So we want to say thank you very much for your support. What we do at the core of it is the transformation program. And what we need from our men and what we preach is the very thing that you go through when you take the Lord's Supper. It's a sacrament. It's an atonement for sin. It's a recognition of your place in the universe, your rightful place with God, and what is offered to you if you accept that. So I don't want to talk too long. I could talk an hour, but that's what we do. That's who we are, and that's what you're supporting. If anybody wants, I'll be here afterwards to answer any questions anybody has, not per se now in the middle of the service. And if anybody would like a tour, you're more than welcome to come down. I'll personally take you through the facility and show you the whole. Well, it's not a small building, so that's 30,000 square feet. And we have 22 employees, and it's 100% funded by donations. 100%. We take no government money. So that's who we are, and thank you.
Skip 1 second. Pastor's prerogative. Get one question.
Shoot.
What happens with those who have severe mental problems, or who are or severe drug addiction that can't break it? You see that?
Uh-oh.
That's my point. If they're broken,
There it is.
What can be done if they can't really be there in community?
There's several elements of that question. Let me unpack them. When we have people with very, very serious mental issues, when very, very serious mental issues, we're not equipped to handle them. So there's a range, like a spectrum, upon which you can work with mental issues. I mean, we're all a little bit nuts, right? So,
hey, come on.
So if they are very, very seriously struggling with mental illness, they typically don't come to us. They're typically getting help from another agency. Remember, we have 28 agencies we work with. So they're essentially funded by Lehigh County mostly. So we can refer folks that we start to realize we have issues with to those agencies, and they get better professional help who can then diagnose and determine what the best course of action is. Sometimes you start to realize the reason people are having behavioral problems is they're not interpreting reality correctly. They perceive aggression that doesn't really exist. So if you ask them, why did you feel like you were in a fight or flight situation there? Somebody just said they weren't going to eat fried chicken that day. Why did you perceive it that way? And then you start to understand where they're coming from. Then we try to get them the help. If they're extremely damaged or challenged, or we're not equipped to handle them, We're not equipped to handle people with severe physical disabilities either. We do have stairs. So there's a range of what we can do. There's the reality of having to look at people's past relative to violence. We're not a high security institution. We're not a prison. We have security at doors. We have a lot of women working there, but we have to limit people with violent felony backgrounds from coming in because we're not equipped to handle them. So that was the first part. The second part of the question I recall has to do with substance abuse. I would describe our substance abuse as very different than most people would think. Most people would think, myself and I thought, they show up, they're drunks, they're on drugs. That's not actually the case as much as you think it would be. We get people that are trying to move away from that typically, or are not having a massive substance abuse problem, then may want to relapse. So our bigger issues is relapsing as opposed to trying to get them straight the first time. There are very well established rehab programs out there that specialize in that. So what we get is guys graduating from those programs, getting dropped off with us, going for the next step. That's what we tend to see. So sometimes guys that are with us that fall off the wagon, disappear, they've been with us before. Maybe they did not come up to the transformation program. I just had a case with this. We had a guy who had stayed with our emergency shelter and left. And when they leave, they don't really tell you typically why they're leaving. They're just not there Tuesday. They were there Monday. So they leave. In this guy's case, he went out and did a whole bunch of drugs. And then he said, I'm going to die in the streets if I keep doing this. So he checked himself into a rehab. So he goes to the rehab for a month. We get a phone call. He wants to come in, but he wants to go right to the transformation program because he fought it last time. He left. He went back to drugs. He's rehabbed. He doesn't want to mess around. He wants to, when's the next date, which is like every week we start new classes. New classes are continuous, but we start new groups of men every week. So he came in, he said, I want to go right to it. So, which brings me to another point, which is, recidivism. We're not a prison. I used to think, what's your recidivism rate? Like that's a failure. It's not. People come in and stay with us, leave, then realize they need to come back, and now they're ready to address their life. It's the whole life. It's not just the substance. It's the whole life. It's when are they ready to look in the mirror and take ownership? When are they ready to really change the things? The homelessness is like a symptom. That's just the symptom at the back end of their propensity for violence, their propensity for substance abuse, trying to handle problems, anger typically, not only, but also oftentimes. So, you get really angry, you go to the bar, then you get in a bar fight. What's the real issue there? And so basically, we're not a specialized drug rehab program, but they exist. And if they come to us and they need it, we try to refer them and get them there. That's what we try to do. Drug and alcohol that we see as a problem, guys get bored. They're, they want to go out, look for a job during the day, but they really go drink, and then they come back that night, and we dismiss them because we're a dry facility. We don't allow alcohol, and we're cold. We're not hot, meaning we don't allow drugs. There are homeless shelters in the Lehigh Valley that are wet and hot. So you get people sitting there the whole time drinking, jugs of wine. I mean, I'm not trying to put them down. I'm just telling you what is. And we're not going to make the progress we need to make if we tolerated that behavior. It would not work. So that's sort of on the drug side. They're typically coming to us not in a state of addiction. If they want to deal with that, there's great resources for them to deal with that. They come to us when they get out of those places, trying to go the next step. That's what we tend to see. That do it? Sure.